and welcome to Best Laid Plans. This is your host, Sarah Hart-Unger, and this is the podcast where we talk all things planning and planning adjacent. Today, we're going to talk all about Quintile 4, or the back to school season. I'm so excited. I love January and the start of a new year. And I also love reflection season, the 2 months at the end of the year when everyone starts thinking about the next year and celebrating and reflecting. But I also love back to school and what I call Quintile 4. So I've talked before about how I love to divide up the year into 5 parts. Quintile 1 is January 1st to spring break. Quintile 2 is spring break to summer. Quintile 3, which we're just finishing up where I live, is when my kids are off from school during summer break. And Quintile 4 is where we are now, which is back to school until November 1st when we begin the official reflection and celebration season, or Quintile 5. So I am coming at you, honestly, from the very first official day of Quintile 4 where I live, because I consider the first day to be the first day that any of my kids has any kind of school or orientation activity. And I now have an official high schooler who went to orientation today. So Quintile 4 has begun, and there is no better time to talk to you about back to school planning and my thoughts about this time of year. But first, some planner-related confessions. So you guys know that I've been very happy and very consistent in my planner system this year. I even did a video, my mid-year Techo Kaigi, where I talked all about how I was still in my beautiful Hobonichi cousin. And I'm using several books, but I've been using all of them very consistently. Well, I lasted a solid 8 months, but I went through a really stressful week. I was on call. Things were just kind of, as you know, I had a summer that really wasn't the summer I imagined. I feel like I rebounded pretty well, but just been dealing with a lot of my own feelings. And I decided that it would really help my mindset to play around with a different way of looking at my time. And I did do a little planner switch up. And I feel like I need to tell you all, just so I don't come across as dishonest, that I've been in one system consistently for the whole year. Again, I did make it 8 months, which is pretty darn good. And I'm still using most of the books in my planner stack, just as I showed them to you in the last video, with 2 exceptions. Number 1, I basically am using a little A6 size paper source 18-month planner as my calendar source of truth. There's not tons of room in this thing, so it's basically just these scheduled events and activities I have each day. The benefit of this little planner is that I always start to struggle this time of year with what do I do with things that are starting to get put on the calendar for spring of 2027. And there's quite a lot. I mean, when you have kids in school, the dates for various things are already out. I have a competitive gymnast who already knows about her meets in January and February and states in March and all that fun stuff. And I have nowhere to put these things when I'm just strictly using my one source of truth in the Hobonichi cousin, which only goes from July to December. So I was kind of sick of looking at that planner, felt like I needed a break from what the daily pages look like, and decided, you know what? I'll just move into an 18-month small planner to keep my calendar, which then serves as a place for me to look at what's going on all the way to the end of 2027. Of course, at some point, you know I'll transfer it into whatever main planner I'm going to use for next year. This isn't going to be a forever thing, but it is really nice to have real estate to put all those things kind of naturally in the paper planning way that I like without having to just use a placeholder page or something like that. So I'm using that for my calendar source of truth. And again, it's pretty small and compact. And then I'm going full on bullet journal kind of style in an MD diary, or actually it's a Midori diary product, MD product notebook. It's just an A5 lined notebook with kind of ivory colored paper, super smooth and easy to write on as it's made by Midori with beautiful quality. And the beautiful thing about this for me is that I can spread out as much as I want. I can take notes at a random meeting. I can make a whole list of logistics for the week if I want to. There's no structure built in here. It's just blank page after blank page, nothing dated. So I'm just enjoying taking up all the space that I feel like taking up. I have noted that if I'm in a ton of stress, like during COVID, I really like the bullet journal style of just feeling like I can fill up a page with whatever I want. So the left-hand side, I have all my tasks for the day. I have anything that's scheduled. I've been tracking my habits there. I put my media there. And on the right-hand side of the page, I'm just playing with some analog time tracking right now. I also have some random other collections already built up in this book. Like I took notes at a meeting. I made a list of things to do for the week, even though I'm mostly using digital task management for that. Anyway, just having fun playing with a different system right now. I did copy all of the dates from my Hobonichi cousin into this new source of truth calendar, because if you're going to use a paper planner as your source of truth, it had better be 100% current. So I went ahead and transitioned fully. For me, that is a fun activity. For other people, that would be bonkers. So I am absolutely not saying that people should be doing this multiple times per year. But honestly, I found it to be quite a joy and relaxing, and it was there for me at a time when I needed it. So that's one of my back to school switch ups. And I do feel like it does tend to be this time of year that I often get a little bit of planner wanderlust, either the fall or the summer. And I have a feeling I'll be back in my Hobonichi cousin before the end of the year. So I certainly didn't get rid of that planner. But for right now, I'm just having fun playing with something else. So yeah, it is back to school, and this is kind of your public service announcement to tell you that if you are going to have a structured planning session for yourself for this season, then now is the time to think about where it would fit in. I am actually going to do mine on Wednesday. I found a space on my calendar, and we'll be doing it after my dentist appointment and before I have a podcast interview. So I've got a nice 3-hour stretch. I think I'll go to a coffee shop or maybe even the library to have a different space to do this. And I plan on doing my whole Q4 planning ritual and thinking through my goals, looking at my annual goals, looking at what I have coming up, prioritizing, etc. I've done podcast episodes before on my whole seasonal planning ritual. I might even have one for Q4. I will go ahead and look because I'm not going to go through all of that today, but I know I've done it for other seasons, so I'll go ahead and link to at least an example of that if you'd like to hear what that sounds like. But yeah, I plan on doing mine on Wednesday, and hopefully that means that I should be able to share a picture of the Quintile 4 goals that I come up with in the show notes for today's episode. And as a reminder, if you ever want to see imagery, obviously, sometimes I've been trying to make videos and I'm doing that a little more than I had before, but I don't do that for every episode. I do, however, often take a photo or a screenshot of whatever it is I'm talking about and put it on the show notes on my website, which is theshoebox.com. Shoe is my initials for anyone new to this podcast, Sarah Hart-Unger, SHU, and the shoebox is theshubox.com. You can always find the Best Laid Plans show notes there and a ton of other stuff as well. Okay. So that's my plan for my Q4 planning. And then I also hope to do kind of a souped up family meeting. We have been getting back into the rhythm of making sure that we talk through the week on Sundays. And I want to do a maximalist version of our usual family meeting this week so that we can do a little bit of family seasonal planning together. Now, my kids are 8, 12, and 14. They tend to be on the energetic side of the spectrum. So I don't think everyone's going to sit around for hours and quietly talk about their desires for the upcoming quintile. However, I do think I could probably get them to tell me some fun things they'd like to do this fall, maybe some ideas for friends they'd like to get together with, some little travel tidbits that they might want to put their thoughts into, and just kind of have some buy-in to what's going on in the next few months. So we will do a maximalist family meeting after I've done my own Quintile 4 planning. So after the break, I'm going to get into, I was going to do 10, but I really just had 8 aspects, 8 of my favorite aspects of planning that are unique to this time of year. And honestly, yes, this does apply more to people with kids, but anybody who has the school rhythm affect them in any way, shape, or form would also have this apply, or anyone who just likes to lean into the seasonality that fall has to offer. And yes, I know it's nowhere near fall weather-wise in most places, but where I live, my kids do head back to school in mid-August or even early August these days. So for me, the season is starting now. You can, of course, save this episode until it would apply to you wherever you are. All right, so we're going to take a break, and then I'll be back with 8 of my favorites. Today's episode is sponsored in part by Factor. Everyone who listens to Best Laid Plans who's been tuning in with me the last few months has known things have been a bit chaotic. It's really been so nice to make certain life staples as easy as possible, and one way I've done that during this crazy time has been to use Factor meals. Not only are these meals healthy and delicious, they're ready in just 2 minutes and require no prep or cleanup. So for those busy clinical workdays when I barely have time to ensure I've put together a balanced lunch, I love that Factor can do all the work for me. Honestly, it kind of makes me feel cared for, and it's just one less thing to think about during a busy week. Every week on the Factor website, you'll find over 100 menu items to choose from. Some of my favorites from a recent order were the Athenian chicken and ginger teriyaki salmon. Both meals helped me meet my daily protein goals, and they were both delicious. So let's eat real. head to factormeals.com/plans50off and use code plans50off to get 50% off and one free breakfast per box for 1 year while supplies last until October 31st, 2026. That's code plans50off at factormeals.com, plans50off at factormeals.com. See their website for more details. Today's episode is brought to you in part by IXL. IXL is a learning platform that helps support kids in all settings, from traditional school to homeschool. No matter what your schedule or situation is, you need learning tools that meet you where you are, and you want to ensure that you have ways to keep kids confident with the skills they have before the next academic year begins. For us, we're headed into that next one this month. We've used IXL for years during the summer to help keep skills fresh for the next academic level, and we'll also be using it when school starts up again, as it's assigned weekly in my kids' school. Everything in IXL is organized by grade and subject, so you can quickly find what each child needs without juggling multiple resources. And it's really designed well to keep kids engaged, with celebrations, awards, and visible progress markers. My 8-year-old is actually excited that she'll get assigned IXL throughout the year now. Make an impact on your child's learning and get IXL now. Best Laid Plans listeners get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/plans. Visit IXL.com/plans to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
All right, I am back, and I'm going to talk about elements of seasonal planning that are unique to Quintile 4, or that I think are just especially helpful to think about as we enter the back-to-school season. The very first one is that I think this is a wonderful time, and I think this a lot, honestly, but really, back to school is a key time to really think through the mechanics of your week, and I highly recommend 2 exercises. The first one is to go through and write out an ideal week. And I know this is not something that is supposed to make you feel like, oh, I'm supposed to follow this exactly and it's going to be futile if I can't. And of course, there's too many moving parts for this to actually happen every single week. It's more just for you to understand, hey, if the parts did fit together as planned, does everything I want to do actually fit? And what do those logistics look like? So writing out an ideal week on a blank calendar spread, I really like to use a vertical spread for this, which includes time for driving, time for transitions, time for getting ready, time for planning, time for household maintenance, like not just the core things that you want to do, but all those in-between things as well. And laying them out and seeing how they fit. And maybe you'll come to the conclusion that, hey, you have more free time than you thought. But maybe you'll also come to the conclusion that, hey, your kids cannot do activities until 9 p.m. every single night of the week, or your head might explode. Or at least you and your partner need to think about how to strategically split up that driving. So it helps with logistics. It helps you to understand what is logistically possible. And for me, it's an incredibly valuable exercise pretty much every back to school season, and really every summer as well. Those are the 2 key times that things tend to change a lot around our house. And so those are the best times, in my opinion, to make sure that you go ahead and do an ideal week. And then alongside of that, it's a wonderful time to do some time tracking. Now, Laura Vanderkam is the queen of time tracking. I mean, that's a title I'm giving her, although I don't think she would argue too much. She's tracked her time for over a decade now, and she's going to be leading an official time tracking challenge. You can find more out about that at her website, lauravanderkam.com. She is my good friend and podcasting partner on Best of Both Worlds. But if you want time tracking guidance, she is your person that you should turn to. And if you'd like to do it with some accountability and like a group setting, she's offering this for free, where she'll guide you through time tracking this fall. So just that might be something you want to check out. But the idea is really to see what you're doing with your time so that you can think about how does that compare to what your ideal week might look like, not to exercise any level of judgment, but just to understand things a little bit better so you can make really thoughtful, intentional decisions about what you're doing with your time. So that is number 1 on my list of things that I think are key for back to school planning. Number 2 is to recognize that this is a season of productivity for many people, but we cannot cram in everything. It is still important to prioritize. I guess I just need to give this little word of wisdom because every January and every back to school, people are like, I'm going to do every single habit that I've been struggling to do all year. And this is just a gentle reminder that we still have to pace ourselves. We're still only going to have a certain number of hours that are relatively free in any given week. And so we need to decide on what we really find is important and not try to do everything at once. So even though we can embrace this as a productive and fresh start season, we need to take things just like a couple of things at a time and pace ourselves. Remember that there are still, September, October, November, December, and half of August as this episode comes out. So 4.5 months left in the year. That is nothing to sneeze at. That's lots of time to adopt multiple habits and accomplish multiple projects, but not all at once at the beginning of the fall season. So that is a reminder that I think is important both for the January season and for quintile number 4. Number 3, it's just a really fun season to embrace anything that makes you think about fall or back to school. I was reflecting on my youth. You know what my favorite thing about back to school was? It was not the school supplies. I mean, I loved the school supplies. Don't get me wrong. I also loved buying my new pair of shoes. I'm going to fully date myself as an 80s child. And I would always get like a pair of Keds and then a pair of these like ugly loafers that were like school shoes. Anyway, that was really fun. But what was really, really, really more fun was in the 90s when I waited for that August issue of 17 magazine. And it was always super, super thick and filled with fall-scented perfume samples and plaid outfits and back to school this and makeup looks and hair. And it was the best. All of my male listeners have just turned off the podcast. Please come back, guys. Maybe you liked it too. I don't know what the male equivalent of that was. But anyway, that was my favorite aspect of seasonality as a kid. So maybe I should go and get like I don't know if magazines are really that thick anymore, but maybe there's an August issue of Vogue calling my name at the local Barnes & Noble. Anyway, I think it's just a wonderful season to embrace the seasonality of it all. I live in a place where we don't get a lot of fall. I'm in South Florida. My wonderful friends, Kelsey Wharton and Erica, oh my gosh, I don't know Erica's last name, but Erica and Kelsey at Girl Next Door podcast, they live in Arizona. They do a Fall-a-Day episode every year where they embrace all the fall things. So I do think it's those of us who have less fall that we can actually feel to get more obsessed with just feeling like it's fall. But I don't know, it's just a fun season to embrace all the scents, all the foods. I will say my family's tradition in this day and age, in the 2020s and not the 1980s and 90s, is that we like to go to Trader Joe's and buy everything pumpkin and eat it all for lunch. So that's my fall tradition. And I just think this is a wonderful season for embracing the fall sensory delights that await us, no matter what the weather is outside. All right, number 4 is to have patience with ourselves. So I kind of said that in number 2, which is about the productivity and not trying to do everything at once, but also not expecting all of the back to school rhythms and routines to be figured out at the first week. I am proud of myself because I got a text that was like, oh, we'll give you this great price if you sign up for basketball right now for the entire year. And I realized, you know what? I can sign up for that basketball anytime I want during the year. And I know this because we signed up for it like in the middle of the year. It's not like a club team. It's more of like a training thing. And I recognized, rightfully so, that I don't need another commitment in August right now while we're still figuring out all of the moving parts. So I think this is a great time to say no to things that don't have to start right at the beginning of the school year, especially because there are some things that kind of do have to start, like, I don't know, taking your kids to school, things like that. So really just giving yourself grace and patience around having everything figured out at the very start of school. Number 5, and this is kind of related, you should expect every transition to take a little bit longer if there are new routines at play. So fun fact, as I said, today is the first day my daughter had orientation and various schools in the area have started as well. And there's been a flurry of texts from the gymnastics team with parents saying that the school buses have not even left the school yet and that they are not sure if the kids will get to gym because there is so much traffic backed up. I'm sure that the buses will figure things out in a few days, but the start of school is just going to be chaotic. Everyone's getting used to things. I'm sure our morning routine will move at the speed of molasses for the first week or two. So I need to keep that in mind and build in more time for transitions during this time of year. And that's probably true for a lot of you as well before we figure out our rhythms, so to speak. Number 6, make sure that you're not waiting for the holidays for a break. So many people take vacations in August, although a lot of people don't. I mean, if you're a European listener, you're like, of course, my August vacation starts on July 10th and then it lasts until September. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But there are many people who are used to taking a good solid chunk of time off over the summer. You may or may not have done that. And then a lot of people, especially in the US, tend to take off for Thanksgiving and then around the Christmas holidays and winter break and New Year's, etc. But there's not usually a lot of built-in downtime during Quintile 4. For me, we didn't take a lot of time off over the summer. I really didn't take a lot of work days off at all in terms of clinical time. I had a couple of weeks of call. I think I took like one day off in July and maybe one day in June or something, but I really didn't take a lot of time off. And if I was trying to wait all the way until New Year's week, which is the next week that I have off, to build in some relaxation, I really think I would tend to get burned out. Like that's a little bit too long. So for many of us, we have to make sure that we build in some little, they might not be full weeks off, but little bits of respite in the fall season because it's not a short season. Some people don't consider Quintile 5 something different. So they're kind of thinking about like the school year until the end of the year. That can be a slog. That's a number of months. And even if you're thinking of November and December as separate, that means we still have half of August, September, and October. So I just have to tell myself, we're going to build in some fun weekends, some little trips, maybe a day or two off, like things that are not just waiting to take all of our rest at the end of the year, but building in some of it now. So again, this might not apply if you just had 2 weeks off over the summer and you're going to be taking off half of December. But if that does not apply to you, or you just feel like this would be too long to go, it's nice to think about where you could get a break in between. All right, number 7. Embrace the organizing energy from back to school, but also organize what feels natural. We went on a tear and my daughter and I did the hall closet with all of the backpacks and school supplies. And it took about 2 hours. And when we were done, I felt so ready to like store things in a strategic way. The backpacks were more organized. I knew where to find the leftover school supplies. It felt like we were motivated to do it because it felt like it makes sense. And other things that feel like they make sense this time of year, including my kids' clothes, so we can make sure we have uniforms that fit and enough shoes for PE and things like that. So I do think that organizing, like the more I've thought about it, is that it is a seasonal and rotating activity. As much as I'd love to think that the house can just be one and done, we're probably going to have to revisit multiple areas each year. So for the fall and back to school, lean into organizing what feels natural for that time of year. Again, for us, that's the kids' kind of study spaces, their backpacks, the entryway, and their clothes. And then finally, number 8, see where you might embrace back to school for yourself. Is there a place in your life where it might be fun to be a student again? There's been a trend. Maybe the trend is over by now. I'm not totally sure, but there was a trend called the personal curriculum. And let me tell you, as trends go, that is one I can absolutely get behind. I love the idea of a personal curriculum that you're going to set up a little schedule for yourself, as we talked about reading and focus training plans in a recent episode. This would be like a training plan for drawing or for piano playing or for reading about Buddhism or like whatever it is that you're interested in. And this is just a wonderful time. If your kids are going back to school and taking classes, my husband has actually declared that he'd like to take AP World History alongside my daughter, and he's been doing the reading with her. So maybe you're actually doing the same work that your kids are doing, but maybe you're like me and you're much more interested in perfecting the doodles that you put in your planner and you'd like to learn how to draw better. So you can embrace being a student in something that you find fun and interesting. All right. Well, this has been such a fun episode. You can probably hear the energy in my voice. I can't help it. I just love this time of year. I love the back to school start energy. I love the idea of fall, even if I do not love Florida fall weather. And this is just one of my favorite times to think about fresh starts and really embrace the season. So please feel free to share with me all of your fall favorites and the rituals that you have around back to school, including what were your favorite memories of back to school growing up? Am I the only one with the teen mags? I liked 17 and then Teen and then YM and then maybe Sassy. I don't know. Those were my favorite 90s magazines, but you can let me know what yours are in the show notes or comments on my website, theshoebox.com, theshubox.com. And I'll be back next week with maybe some more thoughts on the Hobonichi launch as it continues to roll out, and I'll let you know how my new planner setup is going. Have a wonderful week, and thank you so much for listening.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.